think the other part to add to there as well is about Aboriginal people is the stolen generation people, such as myself, those of us who are lucky enough to have found our families, that is breaking down other barriers within Aboriginal society and white society, because my children, my grandchildren, they all know who their family are. Now, I was denied that and not allowed to have that for years and years and years, 30 years after being taken away. But my children grew up knowing who their family were once they were only little kids, and now my grandkids, and they love all their cousins to visit and everything like that. Now they're whole, but they're all this little United Nations mob. And this is the important part. I've got a little, oh, he's not that little, he's 11, well, he's about here. Strawberry blonde, blue eyes, is going to Wesley. And he goes to the Muditch classes every Monday. That's the Nyungar classes. Because his mate goes, and the school allows him to go. He says, because my Nana Sue's Aboriginal, I can come. So he goes off to Muditch classes every Monday. And is so proud. And this is the barriers that are being broken down amongst the kids. And it's because they know who they are. They're going to be whole people, where a lot of the kids who are going through, and the ones in the prisons, have had to go through all that anger and family disruption. But once people become whole, and they can contribute too, and I mean, Aboriginal people can contribute in any sphere and at council, but it's just that they haven't been given the opportunities.
And we're only talking about 3% of the population.
Yeah.
3%. If you're looking at that and say, it's not a big issue if you're looking at 3%, but it's great, it's news. The Maori people are 10% in New Zealand, yeah, with one language. We are 3% of the population here with up to 500 languages. So but the complexity is different. So,
yeah. But it's about what Richard said, just finish with what Richard said earlier to you. It is about listening. Now, everyone here will know about little kids. And it goes back about 18 years, she's 21 now. A little 4-year-old granny of mine was down as a cancer kid. And you know how you walk around the house and there's a 4-year-old saying, Nana Sue, and you're saying, yes, lovey, and you're walking around doing all your jobs. And this little kid grabbed me and she said, sit down. Bettina. And I sat down and she grabbed my face and she said, listen. And see, that's what's missing. People don't listen. It's full-on listening. It's not this, oh yeah, a little bit of listening. It's got to be full-on listening to a person. You know, and we do it, every one of us does it in our daily life. We half listen. And if you listen to what Aboriginal people are saying, you get a better understanding of where we're all coming from, and we're all totally different people.
I was at Beverley School today and I said to the kids, you know why you have one mouth and 2 ears? Here we go. Because you listen twice as much as you talk and you'll learn a lot. And they thought it was great, and they said, oh, we'll remember that.
Any other questions, please? Stand back there, please.
So just in regards to Indigenous culture, is that something that you guys like to promote, or is it something that's a bit more sacred?
Well, Richard does it every day, you know. Just about.
Yeah, well, see, the culture is evolving as well. It's not still. So we can keep the identity, but we also expanded our belonging. My brother-in-laws, my uncles, sister-in-laws, non-Aboriginal people. We're intermarried. We're one of the most cosmopolitan groups in this country. We've got Italian Aboriginals, Russian Aboriginals, we've got French Aboriginals, Dutch Aboriginals, and they're our first cousins. And in these sides. So there's an acceptance. We are very accepting in the society. We have Muslim Aboriginals. We have people, Aboriginals who practice the Jewish faith. We have Aboriginals who are 7 Days Adventists. We have Catholics and Methodists. There's a lot of them in different areas. You go to places like Hermannsburg and they speak German.
And Lutherans.
And Lutherans. So There are the what we call the cultural practices and that we maintain, but there's also other practices that we accept and we bring into the back. So you can see a traditional, what you call a meadow or a corroboree now, and they wore actually pants and shorts. So that's part of it. It's not the dress, and it's not the colour of the skin. It's actually an energy, what we call, or a feeling, or a belonging. That's something that everyone here who's got a belonging from another group or people or background can relate to. You know that, well, I might be Australian, but I respect my genealogy that come from Europe in some way, shape or form, or South America, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I had this debate on the, what's his name, the report, the Bolt report. He said to me, I'm as Australian as you. I said, you are, definitely. You know, you're as Australian as I am. I've got no problem with that. But you're as Australian as the sheep and the cattle, because you're introduced. I'm as Australian as the kangaroo and emu. You're still Australian. You still came here at an early time. You're still a descendant of that first one, but you are still not you're an introduced species. And there's nothing wrong with that, because Australia is the title. I am a Yamaji Nyunga Yamaji, where I rhyme with that area. That's the difference, belonging here. So that's where you can separate. And you've all got the same there. It's not making me any difference. You're saying you're the same. You say, we're from this area. So we're all tribal in some way, shape or form, every one of us.
It's like, yeah, it's like when Richard was talking about at the beginning of his talk earlier, and when I told you about you and Lamu, when I was there, this is what, you go to a function and you'll say hello to Fred Smith and hello to Tom Jones. But when Aboriginal people go somewhere, so when I was in the Territory and when I go to communities here, I say who I am, where I'm from and who my family are. And so people then can straight away link up with, are they related to me or not related to me, but they know who I am as a person and where I'm from. And then, so that's, people have identified. So it's just a matter of relaxing now. And that's how, you know, you get on in these places. You don't just rock up and say hello,
yeah.
You know.
See, the other thing to remember about that is that one of the sciences we're talking about is the science of genetics. We were the forerunners in genetics. Actually, through your bloodline system, who you can marry through, that had strong genes. That's the forerunner of genetics. Today, people are studying all the universities in the world to try to find how you can cut off a lot of the diseases that are around the place. We had that. There was none of that pre-settlement. So that genetic structure and that bloodline system is still there today. It is still there. So it's not embraced in the medical world, but it still exists. So people can tell you who you can marry and who you can't marry. You stick to those rules and your family is very healthy.
You'll read about it sometimes where a traditional person has been punished because they married wrong. And you'll probably remember back in the 50s, an old couple out of Walloona, because they married wrong. They just disappeared into the desert. And they came back out, they were found in the 70s, emancipated, that's women, emancipated, and in a really bad way. When they came in, they didn't last long back in civilization, but they were on country, but they'd married wrong, and they knew they'd married wrong. And that's what Richard's saying, you know, that people knew where all the bloodlines, and even now, there are still Aboriginal people who say, well, you really shouldn't be going with that one, that person, and try and keep it. And that's how people did it all those centuries ago.
So, any other questions, please? If not, I'd really like to, no other questions? I'd really like to thank Richard too, please. One.
Take long.
That's all right.
I'd just like to thank the Shire for inviting us. I know it's an open invitation. My wife she's a doctor, not a medical doctor, but she's a doctor of philosophy. And because I'm a clergyman, so don't hold that against me. I have a bit to do with the Bentley Hospital. And one of the things that we had there, when we're talking about relationships, was cross-cultural relationships. We had a couple of men come in. One was Tim Muirhead and Tim Bridges, Ernie Bridges' son, and Justice Muirhead's son. And that was very helpful. And perhaps something like that, you know, to a better understanding between Aboriginal people and non-Aboriginal people, perhaps something like that Shires could introduce into their workforce. a lot of things that Sue's been talking about, and we've come through, because we come from Niagara. Niagara's been a notorious place, it was, for us as Aboriginal people. But we come through that. And we too are looking at ways and means at which we can build a better society, not only for ourselves, but for our children, our grandchildren and great-grandkids. And perhaps if you have another one of these, it'd be good to see more Aboriginal people come along. So if you knew where they were, perhaps you could send a personal invitation. Just, Shirley would know quite a bit where they are. And just invite them along, just come and listen. Trying to form better relations, understand each other a little better than we have in the past. It's sort of like a healing thing for us. And I'm very appreciative, and I think my wife is the same. We're very appreciative of being here tonight, and thank you for the invitation and for allowing me to speak. I live up in Bentley, actually, Lord Street. It's a heavenly street.
I'll just draw the evening to a close just with a couple of messages. One is our speaker series at the moment is sort of drawn to a bit of a close, and on the 30th of August we start the engagement process, and this little flyer talks about that process. It's basically a stakeholder evening on the 30th, Tuesday the 30th of August. You're all welcome to attend, and we will be doing more interaction and talking with different groups over the coming months as we move forward from there. We're also very keen for people to interact with it. There's a community survey, online survey at the moment. There's a website there if you want to have your say through that process, and I think there's a little flyer about that as well. And the Stakeholder Workshop is being facilitated by an old friend of mine named Wendy Sarkissian, who is going to help us work through the issues of working out what are the real big topics that we want to explore as a community as we work through the community plan process. There's opportunities to be involved in a range of processes as we move forward, and we'll map that out a little bit more, explain a little bit more about that on the 30th, and there'll be advertisements in the local newspaper and on a website as well around that. So they're really important parts of the continuing journey. For me this evening has been a little snippet into a topic that's really near and dear to something I'm interested in. It's that link, I suppose, between the fact that we live in a land that has 40 or 60,000 years of Indigenous wisdom, but we are in fact the youngest multicultural country. I mean, my forebears come mainly from Britain, but I'm really proud to be someone who grew up on the coastal plain here, and really proud to have a little bit of insight about that Noongar wisdom and that Indigenous wisdom. But it's how do we actually bridge that, and especially when we think about the future, and that's what the community plan is talking about. And a lot of the planning talk these days is Perth going from the 1.6 or 1.7 million people it is now to 3.5 million in the next 40 odd years. You know, 2050, we're 3.5 million people. There will be already now more than 50% of the population of Perth doesn't come from Perth. They might be from other parts of Western Australia, but most of them are from other parts of Australia or other places in the world. So how do we actually string that Indigenous wisdom, that 40,000 or 60,000 years of special insight, special science, as Richard referred to it, you know, into the way we live and work and play in this place that we call Canning around here, or the other suburbs, or in Greater Perth, and that's the journey that the community plan's about in many ways.